How did you catch your significant other cheating on you? Story 1. She became more and more distant. Not just that, but also indifferent. She just stopped caring and it showed. I caught her because she claimed she was working overtime, but her pay never reflected it. One day I got out of work early after a machine broke down in the department. I didn't tell her. When I came home, I caught her red-handed with someone in our bed. Story 2. As a sports writer for a daily newspaper, I was assigned to cover high school football games across the region. I happened to be working a game in my hometown one Friday night. My then wife took her turn as a band booster mom working the concession stand at that same game. Because my schedule was so random, she had no clue I was there that night. Sitting in the press box keeping stats for my story, I used binoculars to better see the game. I spotted my wife in the visitor's side concession stand. Standing next to her was a local cop. When I saw them kiss, I knew. We eventually divorced. The cop divorced his wife of more than 30 years in order to marry my ex. They were married about a year, then divorced. I've remarried and will celebrate my 9th wedding anniversary in May. Story 3. I was gone for a military school for 3 weeks. I came back and hung out with our neighbors, and turns out she had intercourse with a guy in their house when they had a little get-together. Worst part for me was that the neighbors told me they noticed her and the guy were gone for an extended period of time while they were watching our then 4-year-old son. I found out about 5 hours before her scheduled flight to Alaska. I had about a week between the school and the moo where we all hang out like nothing happened. That psychopath actually introduced me to him and I shook his hand, obviously, before they told me. I still cringe to this day. Therapy is necessary. Story 4. He left his phone open to someone named Blocked texting him about her weird sunburn from her swimsuit straps. Funny thing is, I wouldn't have given it a second thought if the contact name in the phone was anything normal. So-and-so from work? Whatever. Not a second thought. But titling a contact Blocked, who clearly isn't blocked since they're messaging you, is just a big red flag. Story 5. The dude she cheated on me with had no idea I even existed and I was out of town visiting my dad in Boston. He sent me a message on Facebook telling me he's sorry but he had no idea I existed and he was drunk that night. He woke up before her and used the bathroom and saw my shaving kit. She said it was her roommate's but it was a 1-bedroom apartment. He did some snooping and found out she was dating me. Real bro move. I had no anger towards him, actually the opposite. He even invited me to have some drinks and he would pay. I respectfully declined. Luckily, we only had 6 weeks left on our lease. The most painful and awkward 6 weeks of my life. She threw away a 3-year-old relationship because she didn't want to go to Boston, but was mad that I still wanted to go without her. Now I'm happily married to a non-toxic and wonderful woman, and that experience taught me a lot and allowed me to dodge a bullet. Story 6. This was 7 or so years ago now. He was in the military, so we were long distance. The woman he was cheating on me with for like 6 months Facebook messaged me one day telling me everything. Not because she suddenly felt guilty, but because she was pissed he cheated on her and gave her chlamydia. They ended up getting back together, got married, and had a kid like a year later. But shockingly that didn't work out and now they're divorced. Story 7. He only wore cologne for special events. I just cleaned our bathroom cabinets and organized everything. A few days later, I noticed his cologne bottle had slightly moved. Dug out his clothes from the previous night and found makeup all over his shirt's shoulder. I did not wear that kind of makeup. The cologne bottle never lies. Story 8. I had a gut feeling. He was in nursing school and would routinely have classmates over to study. There was a younger girl, and I got a weird feeling about her. I got out of work early one day and found her in my home, where my young children were. They were on the couch, not doing anything, but I knew. He made up some bullcrap story as to why she was there. He said the alarm at his parents' house was going off and he called her to come babysit. A few days later, I asked if he could meet up near where he was studying to just grab a quick coffee so we could catch up. He declined. A few days after that, he was home and showering. Phone went off and he never locked it. I decided to look at his phone and there was a text from his friend, Andy, who's a male. At first I was like, oh, I'm just paranoid maybe. But I read the message and it definitely wasn't from his friend Andy. It was a girl from school. And the message clearly showed me he was cheating. He came downstairs and I simply said we should separate and start the process for divorce. He said okay, they are married now. I'm in a good relationship. All worked out in the end. Never ever ignore your gut instinct. Story 9. We were watching a movie at his house when I got a phone call from his roommate's girlfriend. She sounded upset and asked me to step outside so she could speak with me privately. I didn't think to ask how she knew I was currently with my boyfriend. I went out to the front yard and she told me about how she and my boyfriend's roommate, her boyfriend, were led to believe we had an open relationship. He was bringing girls home constantly whenever I was gone. Sometimes the same girls, repeatedly. She and her boyfriend, the roommate, had only just realized that I had no idea what was going on. They felt awful and they made a plan to tell me. I was a little numb when she told me this. It was hard to believe I could be so oblivious. There were a lot of nights I was working late studying, I was in college, and a lot of nights he said he had to work late and I never questioned him. When I went back inside, my boyfriend wasn't there. I found him in his roommate's bedroom. Roommate had come out while I was on the phone and told him who I was talking to and why. He was sitting on the floor and couldn't even look at me. I tried to talk to him about what he'd done and for how long. Roommate tried to help facilitate, good guy, but boyfriend couldn't even look at me, kept repeating how awful he was. It got annoying. So after a little while, I thanked roommate profusely and left the room. A friend picked me up. I maintained my composure as I went to gather my things, exit the house and get in the car. Then I put my head between my knees and sobbed. Broke up with him right after that. Had a weird week of him trying to get back into my good graces and me almost letting him, but I'd realized how immature and stagnant of a person he was. He stalked me for a little bit and my own roommate threatened him with cops if he ever came to our property again. He was in mid-20s and I was 19 when we started dating, and I didn't realize how much of a red flag that was. Glad I wasted only a year of my life on that bozo. I look back and cringe, but I was young and still figuring things out. I still hope his roommate and the girlfriend are doing well. Story 10. Found intercourse tape at 4 a.m. It's kind of surreal that I found it. Dog woke me up to take her outside to potty. I already had been assuming my ex-wife had been cheating but had no proof. Found a digital video camera in a travel bag one time and some lingerie in a travel bag, and she said she was planning something for me, which was so out of character for her. Let's just say I would have been surprised to find out she was planning on filming a video of us as our sex life was dead. Plus she had been out of town several times to visit friends. There was no SD card in the digital camera though. Back to the night in question. So after our dog came back inside, I looked to my right and saw my ex-wife's purse sitting on the washer. The moonlight was perfectly centered, shining on the purse. I walked over to it and saw a zipper pocket inside the purse. Inside that was a container with an SD card. At that moment, I knew exactly what I'd found, but I needed to be sure. I took it out, put it in my laptop, and sure enough are like 20 different videos. Each file is titled with a date and time that coincide with her visits out of town. Sure enough, they're all videos of her having intercourse with someone else. Story 11. Not cheating per se, but I found out later that she met someone while we were dating. After a really intense 6-month relationship, she became a raging B-word practically overnight, saying the meanest things imaginable. It was her way of getting me to break things off. Less than a year later, she popped up on my Facebook feed in the memories section and I saw that she was married. That kinda messed with my head, honestly, so I did a little digging. She was on a website about relationship advice. I knew her username, she told me earlier, and I started looking through some of her answers. Sure enough, one of her answers told a story about how she met her current husband, and it lined up to when we were dating. Story 12. We were supposed to hang out after work, but she bailed last minute with some crap excuse, so I followed her. She lied about her plans and went back to her ex's house. The next day when I saw her, I just told her that I caught her in a lie. It's a pretty bad one, and we're done. She kept asking how I knew what she was doing, and all I said was, "No, I'm not gonna help you be a better liar." She bawled her little alligator eyes out. Story 13. We were at an anniversary/post-deployment trip to Vegas, and she was passed out drunk. Phone kept blowing up, so I looked at it. Read their whole message chain that went way back to before I deployed. She had been talking to him the whole night we were out, saying how she wished she was there with him instead of me, and all kinds of crap. Then looked at other messages with weird contact names. Some were just straight up their names and she didn't try to hide it. Found like 7 dudes and 3 women she was banging. Found a couple that she had partied with a bunch while I was gone. She stopped hanging out with them right as I got home because they were getting divorced. I found out they were getting divorced because she was their girlfriend/third wheel, but wouldn't stop doing the thing with the husband behind the wife's back, so she left him. I found out this Spartan race group she would travel with all over the country to Spartan races was basically an all-word club as well. They would all travel and stay together, and after races would party, and everyone did the thing with everyone. When I confronted her about what I found, she told me it was my fault for abandoning my family when I deployed. We met on a previous deployment. She was military too. She knew exactly what I did on deployment and how busy I stayed and had no time for anything really. Story 14. Didn't find out until way after, but damn, I knew. There was a shift in his behavior, and I just always had a terrible feeling that he was doing the thing behind my back. But he was pretty good at covering all his tracks, and I found nothing. Fast forward several months later, we're already broken up because it was a tumultuous relationship all in all, and he's begging me to get back together in his car over some fast food. I instead take this opportunity to pry as much information from him, claiming I just want the truth and want a fresh start, including her name and the fact that she too was cheating on her then boyfriend. The funnier side of it, which thinking of it now is crazy, I heard nothing about this when it went down, is her side of it. I guess they'd taken a video of them doing it and carelessly left it in their Snapchat conversation. And while Missy was at her own family's event with her boyfriend, he went through her phone while she got up from their table. Found the video, he made a scene from what I understand. They all knew what she did. After learning what I need to know, I laughed with him, had him feeling nice and forgiven, took my free meal and never saw him again. Story 15. Oh man, this one cuts deep. Currently happily married, but dated a girl a few years in college grad school. It was a long distance thing, but we were madly in love through most of it. One day she randomly started telling me about this really cool guy she met. A lot of similar interests, really funny. I was genuinely happy for her because she used to complain about how she wanted me to be more ethnic. She started uploading pictures to social media and he was constantly in them and with her. I wanted to be a supportive boyfriend and wanted to show her that I trusted her, so I didn't really complain about all the time they were chilling together. In a group setting, mind you, not alone. I remember we'd gotten into an argument about something totally unrelated. We hung up the phone that night upset. The next day, she called me and wanted to talk some more about it. Cooler heads prevail, right? We had a lengthy discussion, we both were kinda dug in, but then she told me she spoke to him about it and he agreed with her. I got mad, but I kept it to myself. I have a problem where I don't open up about my feelings. Whatever, agree to disagree, let's move on to something else. I noticed a trend, we were arguing more, and he would always side with her. In my head I thought this dude was being an absolute snake, but to her I would just constantly agree to disagree, or blindly apologize for making her feel bad. End of the semester, and she was going back home for the summer, and so was he. She called me and told me how much she was going to miss him, etc., and I just couldn't take it anymore. That problem I have about not sharing my feelings, it also comes with the quarterly eruption of emotion. I just straight up asked her if she's done anything more than friends with him. She stumbled over the words, and I pressed. She told me she kissed him. I was pissed, but I pressed further. And sure enough, she told me she slept with him. I immediately hung up the phone, threw it against the wall. It was a flip phone, so the battery fell, but it didn't break. She called back over and over. We started communicating through text, but that was it. The love of my life, or so I thought, found someone else. She ended up dating him for a few months, but he ended up going to another school closer to his hometown and didn't keep the relationship going. Story 16. She asked to borrow our roommate's laptop, but got called into work for an emergency. Roommate opened the laptop to find like 10 different platforms open with proof of her cheating going back all 7 years we were together. When I got off work, she wasn't home yet and my roommate showed it to me. Everything clicked into place and I just felt numb. Me and my roommate packed her things and put them out on our first floor balcony. She got home like 2 hours later, and when I confronted her about it, she tries to get mad at me for invading her privacy. She started screaming and breaking things, so I asked her if we could go somewhere else to have the argument, like her car or something. Once we got to the front door, I opened it for her. She walked out and I just closed it and walked back inside. I then proceeded to drop her stuff to her from the balcony while she lost her crap outside. Eventually the cops came and she got arrested. What followed was a 6-month saga of her showing up at my job, the new place me and my roommate moved to, and 60 plus nights of her camped out in her vehicle outside my apartment. Story 17. I had a feeling for a while, but nothing concrete. We only had one car, so she would drop me off at work and then go on to her work. We were supposed to have lunch together when she called and she said she couldn't make it. She was tied up at work. Boss heard I didn't have lunch, so gave me the company truck to go pick up lunch for the shop. Drove to the fast food place my wife and I were supposed to have lunch at and saw her sitting outside with a coworker holding hands and feeding each other. I went through the drive-thru, then honked at them. Her face went from confusion to shock and she tried to pull her hands away from the dude. Found out he was told I was her gay roommate. Story 18. I was a freshman in college. My boyfriend was a sophomore. We lived in the same dorm, 2 floors apart. One night, while I was studying in my room, my boyfriend's roommate came in, followed by his ex-girlfriend / BFF and her roommates. He asked if we could go somewhere to talk. We all went down to the floor's common room and they sat me down. The ex-girlfriend, who I'd only met once, took my hand while the roommate told me my boyfriend had gone out to a party that night. I was aware. The ex-girlfriend was there and came on to her. She turned him down. He then went up to another girl who also knew about me and turned him down. The ex-girlfriend left the party and immediately told the roommate. The roommate was livid that he would pull that on me. He called the boyfriend and told him he needed to come back to the dorm and tell me what he did. Boyfriend said no. The roommate told him if he didn't, he was gonna tell me himself. Boyfriend called his bluff and lost. I was devastated. It was my first boyfriend. I broke up with him the next day. He came down and begged, pleaded, and cried. He also put the blame on the girls, saying they seduced him. I said no. He walked out bawling. Story 19. I've never told anyone this. I felt so ashamed. My ex-boyfriend and I were at a party, and we were planning on sleeping over. The party was wrapping up and these girls were leaving. My boyfriend offered to walk them to the bus stop. He was looking at one of them meaningfully, but I didn't have the confidence to say anything, nor did I know what I could say. Now, in my country, this was very normal. Guys would even ride with a girl in a taxi to her house to make sure she got there safely, or ride with her on the bus to her stop. Sure, some dudes tried to use that as an opportunity to hook up, but the point is that it was a very normal behavior. So on its own, it wasn't a red flag. What was a red flag was when he came back and we got intimate before going to sleep, and I could taste another girl on him. He had intercourse with one of them and not used protection or washed himself before letting me do that. Here's what I'm really ashamed of. I just froze and went on to autopilot. I just kept going. I don't remember if we did it or not. My immediate response was to pretend nothing had happened and to cover it up like I was the one who had done something wrong. F you, Tom, you disrespectful crop. His commanding officer told me he was going to Hawaii on a 2-week vacation. She wasn't supposed to tell me, but thought I should know since I guess he came off as secretive when getting the time off work. We lived outside of the US at the time. I confronted him and he just said he needed to clear his head away from me and our 3 children. Looking through his social media, I came across a friend of his that I'd never known, as he and I have known each other since high school. I looked her up and her page was filled with love posts about his secret lover. When he left, he took all of our passports. She ended up posting pictures of her in his uniform, bragging about the vacation. He blogged about it and included pictures of the vacation. On the bright side, since he was so many hours behind in time, I was able to pretty much empty our bank account and leave him with nothing but $100 for the end days of his vacation. Thank you so much for watching. If you have stories of your own, feel free to write them below in the comments so I can make a video on them in the future. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you liked it. I'll see you in the next one.